So this is the June 4th meeting of the Orange Government Access Television Committee. I'm the chairman, Saul Silverstein. We have with me, if you're looking at the screen, top left corner is Christopher Kelly, our assistant coordinator. Top right corner is our committee secretary, Marlene Silverstein. Middle row on the left, Ron Davis. Center, Mike Muddett. To the right, Gary Del Piano. On the lower line is Bob Kelly. And our last member is Tina Magish. She's on phone today. So we will start the meeting. And the first item on the agenda is questions and comments. Does anyone have any questions and comments?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. I do have one. I was watching a meeting of the recycling committee a couple of weeks back, and during the meeting, the screen froze, and there was no audio, and it seemed like a very long time. And while I was watching that, I went online to see if the streaming on the internet had frozen too, and I turned on both the Discover stream and the YouTube stream. And a little while later, one of them froze or it was buffering. It looked like it was buffering to try and update the screen. And that seemed to last for a while too. And I don't think it was the same point in the program. Those streams on the internet are delayed from what you see on channel 79. So I kicked that over to Chris with an email after the meeting and asked him if he could look into it. And I don't know if you've had a chance to do it, Chris, have you?
Yeah, I don't think we have it. If you go into the recording, it's not there. So I'm not sure what happened. It could have just been a glitch in the system, but I haven't noticed it since.
Okay. And
sounds like it was on the file.
What?
Sounds like it was on the file.
I don't know, but Chris says that what he is broadcasting now on video on demand doesn't have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it might have just been a glitch in that stream at the time, but we recorded it properly and it seems to show properly. So that's good news. The next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the May 14th, 2020 meeting. I've emailed it to all of you. I'll take a motion to approve. And I believe everybody was at the last meeting, so everybody can vote or abstain as they choose. Does anyone, thank you. So we have a motion by Bob, a second by Tina. Does anyone want any time to review it?
No.
No, we're all set. Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes as written?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
And it sounds unanimous to me. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the budget. I have sent you a copy of the town-funded budget and the Cable Advisory Council budget. Town-funded budget is on the page that's labeled General Fund. And where we stand right now, the balance in the recording secretary's budget is $423. The balance in the coordinator's salary is $0. He gets paid at the beginning of the month. So, and this is the beginning of the last month of the fiscal year. So that's why that's $0. The assistant coordinator's balance is $856. The camera operators, that balance is $3,009 about. And for miscellaneous supplies and equipment, we have $1,652. Sorry about that. And probably a few hundred of that will get spent right away this month for our purchase of Cablevision, or I guess it's Altice Optimum Internet Service, and our purchase of AT&T wireless service. The second page, anyone have any questions on the town-funded budget? The second page is the CAC grant budget, and basically we have spent all the equipment money on the CAC grant budget, and the only thing that's left is $440 in employee benefits and $392 in employee labor cost. The $440 for benefits is basically FICA and workman's comp, and that gets taken out at the end when that last $392 gets spent. And the only reason that has not been spent is we have not been able to use our temporary camera operators because of the coronavirus pandemic. And basically Chris has been doing most of the, pretty much all of the recording from home remotely, except for one program. I think the Board of Ed did it for us because it conflicted with another program Chris was doing at the same exact time. So I don't know when that last few dollars of the CAC grant is going to get spent. Any questions on the budget?
No.
Nope.
Nope. Okay, we can move on to the coordinators report for the month of May, which I also sent out. Basically, we did 16 meetings in May, and we did 5 other events, total of 21 programs for the fiscal year through May, which is 11 months. We've done 156 meetings and 18 other events, total of 174 programs with an estimated annual total. We're going to project that for the rest of the year as 190 for the year. In going through these, when I received this the other day, there was some discrepancies I had to talk to Ron about. And one of the things was for some of these special events that Chris recorded, like the arts and crafts that he recorded at the senior center, Ron had inadvertently put down live and then disc. And we usually do that when we broadcast a program live, then record it onto a disc later and show it on VOD. And the arts and crafts thing was just recorded. It was not broadcast live. So I changed where Ron had said live on the report. I changed that, edited to say recorded. I'm not sure if that's the way we've done things in the past. I think in the past, if something was not broadcast, we only did the disc version on it. Ron, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so we may be overcounting a little bit on the programs. And the reason that happened is last month we did record a program in one month and then played it in the next month. And so in that month, I had just said recorded for future broadcast on the report. So if you look at actually the top of that section, it says events recorded, web stream, VOD, and cable class via Optimum Frontier in May. So it is kind of accurate to say it was recorded on one line and then counted as recorded and then counted again when it goes to VOD. So I'm not sure. We probably should think about how we want to count these programs when we do that.
Well, where it says recorded for later broadcast, I would have put the word disc.
Okay, so you would change, and where it says recorded for arts and crafts, you would have put a disc also? Just take out that line and not count it?
I'm sorry?
Look at the item 4.
Yeah.
And item 12 on the list. They both say recorded. You would just delete those lines?
Well, let's see what you recorded. We should only just have discs there.
Okay, so you would not count those as separate programs?
It wouldn't be live. Live would be missing.
Yeah.
Disc would be there.
Okay, so we have 2 extra programs in, and we should probably take out. So we probably should amend this when we approve it. We should approve it with changes to remove those 2 lines and update the tabulation of the number of programs for the month.
Yes, by 2.
Yes, by 2. Okay. Going on, we've got some player hit report. We had live hits on Discover, 157 live hits in May, and video on demand hits in May on Discover, 229. And Chris now has added the YouTube hits for the month. And these, I believe, are VOD hits, 369, or is that VOD and live, Chris?
VOD and live.
That's VOD and live? Okay, I should note that. Ron, you should note that next month. Or
Yep.
Chris, when you send it, note that it's VOD and live.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll make-
I didn't realize that was combined.
Yeah, I didn't either. I asked Chris yesterday, actually. He said it was both, but I thought it was only for the next section. So the next section, which lists the specific programs during a month, during May and then during April. And we're usually tracking just the VOD hits after the fact. So we now have we first had the Discover column. Now we have added a YouTube column. And again, the YouTube is both live and VOD, right, Chris?
That is correct.
Okay. Is there any way to do the same thing for Discover or no?
Yes. Yep. Wait, in terms of show both in.
Yeah. So for the YouTube, you've got a combined number. Is there a way to make it only the VOD hits? Or I'm trying to make.
I think the easiest way to do it is just do it like we do it with Discover and show the live and VOD separately with YouTube.
So why don't we do that going forward?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you. For the rest of the report, Ron, do you want to say what you did during the month and what Chris did?
Yep. Under comments, the town of Orange continues to hold official board meetings and other meetings virtually, and OGAT has assisted by cable casting almost all of them live. In addition, using capabilities now available to us, OGAT has streamed meetings on YouTube, Discover, and Facebook. No progress was made on the town talk during this month, obviously, to the virus problems. The OGAT studio remains closed for most of the month due to the COVID-19 pandemic, resulting in operation of OGAT by remote means. Board of Finance member PJ Shanley has requested that OGAT consider covering the Amity Board of Education meetings as we have done in the past. All efforts to contact the administration at Amity have been unsuccessful, including a visit to the Amity administration office at the high school, which was closed. I have corresponded with Mr. Shanley requesting his assistance in contacting an appropriate Amity administrator. I might add to that I was just contacted today by the Amity Board of Ed chairman. And so I'll get back to you with that information. Assistant Coordinator Chris Kelly and I have been discussing a number of subjects relating to the upcoming Cable Advisory Council grant program and possible items to be considered for funding. Assistant Coordinator Kelly has provided some insight into these possible grant requests, which will be discussed at this meeting. Respectfully, Ron Davis.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ron?
Nope.
Nope.
I have one comment that I was going to make. You mentioned that we were basically operating remotely, which is true, but we did have a couple shoots in the month of May, and at the end of April, we were shooting some stuff related to this to the senior center, and we were covering classes that would normally be held for people, and instead we're going to be broadcasting those classes on our VOD and YouTube, so people at home can.
Oh, so that was sort of half and half.
Yeah, and so you were mentioning the budget before, and I just wanted to note that I was trying to use up some of the camera operator hours by having my one of our camera operators come in and film with me for the senior center shoots, and we were able to add to at least get one of our camera operators some hours for that.
That's
Well,
great.
good.
Thank you.
I'm a little concerned that we're going to lose our operators if we don't find some stuff for them to do.
There is stuff for them to do. We're going to keep shooting some stuff for the senior center. So, we'll keep thinking of more ideas to put, content on the channel.
Good.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve this report with corrections to the number of programs counted for the month.
So moved.
I got Bob Kelly with a motion. Gary seconded. Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sounds unanimous again. Thank you very much. Action items. I did send out the action item list. First action item is that missing handle for the Steadicam. I went on eBay today, and I think the model we have is a Merlin 2 Steadicam, and you can't find the handle by itself, and people are selling used versions of that stabilizing system for like $600. Wow. I think it's like new. So right now we're not having any luck seeing that. So I don't know if we're ever going to get that, but I'll keep it open for now and check periodically. You never know.
And Chris and I did add something to the CAC grant to see if we can cover that.
Yeah, I saw that. Okay. The last question.
Sorry, Chris has mentioned that he'd like to get a better leverage camera holder than the one we have.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think that, like Mike said, we're going to discuss that during the grant discussion. Police Academy Town Talk, Ron, you already reported that you basically can't make progress because of the virus. It needs some mutual work with other people. So that's kind of on hold. And the last item was add a procedure for recording and broadcasting virtual meetings to the OGAT procedures book. That was assigned to Chris, and I know Chris is working on, because we chatted about it earlier today. So he is partway through that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have a bunch of resources from Zoom and TeleView, and those were the resources I used when I was trying to figure it out. And I'm just going to include some notes in there and try to organize it so it's pretty clear for someone that wanted to replicate it.
Okay. So we're still in process, and we'll hope. You think you can get it done by the next meeting, or?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
Great. Thank you. Next item is the CAC grant. So this is where I did not send stuff out because there was a lot of stuff to send. So what we have is Chris made a spreadsheet, and I'm not sure how successful I'm going to be in trying to get this on the screen, but let me see if I can do this. I don't know what you see. Can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
You see the spreadsheet?
Yep, quite clear.
I don't. Okay. So let me get up to the corner here. So it's divided into several parts. The first part is the streaming subscription, and we have what's called Arcus renewal, and that is what Discover, the service that Discover provides to us to stream VOD and live. They are dropping the VOD from their service, and in lieu of the VOD, they are raising our bandwidth from, I think it's 2,200 gigabytes to 2,600 gigabytes of data.
2,400 to 2,600.
24 to 26. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yep.
So I asked Chris if how much we're actually using, and we're using a lot less than 2,600. And today, when he looked into it even further, it was way less than 2,600 in a year. What do you think it is in a year, Chris?
It fluctuates between years, but I could confidently say that this year, and we've been using a lot of bandwidth because of COVID and remote streaming and all that. And I would say we're probably only going to use, I think we use like 280 so far, 280 gigabytes. And we're well into halfway of that contract. Yeah. So we're probably going to hit maybe, I would under 600 gigabytes.
Yeah. All right. So I asked Chris to go back to Discover and see, hey guys, do you have lower data plans that we could look at? Because we don't need 2,600. So Chris got a quote for 1,300 and a quote for 260. And the quotes are on the right. So the 2,600, they want to charge us what they charged us last year, which is $2,149 for the year. Half of that would be $1,249, and 260 gigabytes would be $449.
So we're at 250 right now, and we're only halfway through, right? So 260 seems like it will be low.
Yeah.
260 would be low.
Yeah, 1,300 might be adequate.
Well, and you get a much better deal when you start looking at the mid-range price and up. You know?
Do they give you a refund if you don't use it all?
No, they don't give you a refund if you don't use it all. But what they do is, if you don't have enough, you can buy more. I'm sure it's not for the same. I'm sure, it's probably a little more expensive to, per gigabyte to have to add more later on. But
That's not likely.
my recommendation would be to maybe just go with the 1300 this year if we decide to go with Discover again.
And what did we use last year? How much did we use last year again?
I can't give you that number right now. I'd have to look it up because it resets every year, and I'd have to probably reach out to Discover and ask that question.
Well,
but
what
I
did
know
you tell Saul?
What's that?
What did you tell Saul? You were talking to Saul earlier today?
About
He was looking at a monthly amount. When he spoke to me earlier, he was saying like, oh, in this month we used like 50 or 20 or 10 or something like that. He didn't have the annual total for me. It just didn't sound like we were ever going to get to 2,600.
So if you use 100 a month, then that would be 1,200.
Right.
And they're offering you 1,300, and we don't use 100 a month, correct?
Right.
Right?
Correct.
But 260 is too little, so it seems to me that we should if we're going to go with them again, then we should go with the 1,300.
I would think the 1,300 is better also.
Okay, so that's one option. The next option is it's called option 4 on his spreadsheet, and that's it's called a TelView upgrade. And TelView also has a service, and it says please refer to the quote provided, and I'll have to go pull that up on the screen now. Hang on a second. Quote. Can we see that?
Nope.
No.
You don't see?
You got to share. If you're sharing per app, you got to share it again.
Oh, it's paused.
Who can see it? Who can see it?
No, it says your screen share is paused. How do you stop share and start again?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's kind of silly.
I think you were sharing the Excel app, not the screen.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So this is the TelView quote. And what we have here is we would have to buy a new device, a streaming encoder, which they list at $49.50, and it would give us for $4,200. So we'd have to buy a device. And then there's some other things. And with this device, is this all we need, Chris, or do we need some stuff that's further down on the quote?
Nope, that's all you need as far as hardware.
What does it do?
It's
Hold on, just to be clear. So that's just the hardware. Everything below that is the services. You can't just buy the hardware and stream. You still
So
need all the
you need to
services.
buy something else, right?
Yes.
To do the VOD and the streaming.
It's all the
correct?
hardware, but it's not all the services you need to stream.
Right. So I still have to. So this is a one-time charge, $42.08. Now I go down, and I need?
So all of this.
I need video on demand.
Yes.
$510 a year.
Yep.
I need Connect Cloudcast streaming workflow for $1,500 a year.
Correct.
And I need Connect CMS for $1,000 a year, rounded.
Yes.
And in this, we also get, by the way, like 450 gigabytes a month. So we're still like, over 2,600 gigabytes that we don't need. Right?
Yes.
So that would be this option. We would drop Discover, go to this new piece of hardware with these new services that would annually cost us a certain amount of money. In this case, it looks like close to $3,000.
10,530.
No, that's a total of other things.
Oh.
It's $3,000. So it's a one-time $4,000 and an annual $3,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And what are we paying for it now?
$21.49. So this is more expensive, but again, this is also giving us this, $250 a month, which is way more than we need. It's given us 3,000 Is that three?
Right. What we're essentially doing to what we our incentive here is to get the VOD back. That's why we would be going with TeleView. That's one of our main reasons. Because we want to maintain our own proprietary VOD storage. We don't, we may not want to be storing our videos on YouTube. We may want to be using something a little bit more solid, like a service, to keep the videos. There'll be no copyright issue. We'll own all of our material. We have a little bit more control. There's easy service. So if we need assistance, our TeleView Care can take care of us. There's not really much of that with YouTube. You get what you get, and they change things at their will. So there is a little bit of risk there with YouTube.
Yeah, so the other question, Chris, I guess we should have also asked TeleView if they have a lower gigabyte data plan also.
Like 100 gig.
This is their base. So as far as I'm concerned, that's what they offer.
Yeah, and they did include a price list of everything. So it's another document, but Chris sent it over.
Yeah, all right. There was too many documents to read, so I just took the summaries. So I think it would be worthwhile to ask them if there is something with like half of this, maybe 125 a month or 100 a month. If they have something, it would be worthwhile to ask that. So if we don't, because if we don't do this, then we have the only option we have right now is YouTube. We are doing YouTube right now. We started
for VOD. Our only
VOD. I'm talking VOD. So the options are: you can go to the Discover for streaming and YouTube for VOD, or you can go to TeleView and do both, and still have YouTube available for VOD and streaming too. So that's
with TeleView, are you going to have to do anything with Discover anymore?
Nope.
No.
And how much are you saving on that total?
You're not saving anything.
No,
Right
yes,
now,
you are.
it costs
You're not spending anything at Discover. So what aren't you spending at Discover?
$21.49.
$21.49, and this is going to cost us
$3,000 a year
investment plus $3,000 a year. So you're going. It's going to cost us $900 more a month.
Right.
A year.
Yep.
Right.
So we should really look into whether we can get a little bit less gigabytes per month. I think 250 is way too much.
But we also may use up more, down the. I don't know. Like I could. It's not
always
clear
go
how
back,
much we're
though.
going to use up. All I'm saying is the bandwidth that we use up with Discover we may not be using the same amount with TeleView. It's a different streaming device. There may be different settings. I can't guarantee that we're going to be streaming at the same bandwidth that we are now with Discover.
And certainly they're always going to take more money from you.
Yep.
They would love to take more money.
We don't have enough. We can always add more to it, I'm sure.
Yeah. As far as I just haven't done. I really. I haven't heard any other option as far as gigabytes per month and bandwidth. So I'll look into that, but I can't guarantee that there's another option. So, yeah,
But it doesn't hurt to ask.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And what is this Connect CMS upload 100 gig? Oh, so that's when you're uploading the files to their server?
Absolutely. Yep.
And that's $1,200 a month for that.
Yeah, it's required. So there's there's no really getting around that, unfortunately.
Right. And that only has 100 gigabyte storage. Is that going to be enough?
It'll hold 6 months of programs.
And then you start dropping them off and adding them on, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's what we do with Discover right now, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All right.
All right. So the only other question I had on this was we have a service contract on our TeleView server.
Oh, excuse me 1 second. I'm just noticing in this quote here, I think they're adding an additional 250 gigabytes of storage. So I don't think that 100 gigabyte is. I think we may have a total of 350 if I'm reading that correctly.
You are correct, Chris.
All right. So it's not 100 gigs, it's 350. So we'll have enough for a whole year of VOD program.
Yeah, more than enough.
So there's a couple things I want to point out, kind of what Chris said, right? So the first line comes super important, right? So with this VOD, it's a much more advanced VOD technology. So it has hold on. No, sorry, Sal, the first line of that page.
First line of this section, okay.
Yeah. So with this, and going through the spec document they gave us, that 3-rate adaptive bit rate, right? So that means that they, depending on how much bandwidth, can scale their video to get better or worse depending on your bandwidth. So this gives the 3 option. Technically, that line is not required. We can get just 1 bit rate, which turns out to be the middle bit rate, the 540p, but that gives you 720p as well as 270p. So that rate kind of, what I'm saying, I guess, is that because it's a better quality stream, that's what Chris is referring to, that we may need more streaming data. It's not the same as Discover Video, where it's a very, very compressed video that's shot over. It's 3 megabits per second.
What is video, the Discover now? Is it 720, 560? What is it?
I don't even think it's 270 right now.
No,
So then why don't we do this and try it with the 1 bit rate? That saves you $510 right there.
Right.
Yeah, we just have to confirm that we can go to lower.
I have to go and ask, Teleview, obviously, and I'd have to get back to you on that.
Right.
I
But
can't guarantee that can happen. I just don't know if it's flexible like that, but I could certainly ask.
Yeah, I think we just want to make sure we can go to like the lower bit rate and not be maxed out at 720.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sorry, give me that again.
I think what Chris is saying, he wants to make sure that we get to pick which bit rate we use, not, it doesn't lock us in at 720.
Well, Discover is 720.
That's not what they just said earlier.
Well,
It's definitely not using 3 megs of my bandwidth right now, so it's not coming across as 720p.
That's what it was when they sold it to us.
Well, I'm currently streaming from an encoder from our town hall right now, and I have it set to 1080 resolution. So I think if they may be compressing it further, but I'm sending them 1080, and I'm pretty sure what we're getting is 1080. We're getting some form of 1080 on our internet stream, at least on our and VOD as well. VOD is 1080.
Okay. Yeah, but they're definitely doing a lot more compression then, because I'm only seeing 1 meg from that app. So it's more in line with the middle of the road stream of the
well, I think right now since we're on Zoom, it's going to be lower bit rate. But if we were to shoot a meeting in town hall, that would shoot right up to 3 meg.
Okay. All right. Sorry, we don't have to go into that, but we could see what bit rates we are allowed depending on.
Yeah, all I want to just make clear is that I did not talk about like any like changing or any variation of these items here. So I can't guarantee that this $3,000 subscription is going to change. And the way, like, I don't know if we have to make a decision on this tonight, but I wouldn't make a decision on this assuming that we're gonna be able to change that yearly subscription number.
Okay, we're not making a decision on this tonight. We're asking our questions tonight and trying to understand what it is we're being offered. And the next meeting, the July meeting, we have to make a decision and finalize our list, because the grant application is due to the Cable Advisory Council on July 15th. So we have about a month to iron this out, get our ducks in a row, present our final look at it at the July meeting, and make our decision there and be done with it. So we have questions that you're going to check. One is if a lower bandwidth would be available. And the second is if the bit rate, rather than a 3 rate, adaptive bit rate, if there's a 1 rate or something like that. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions we should be asking them?
So one more thing, though, I want to go to the middle page real quick.
All right. Before we get to the middle page, there's one more thing. in terms of hardware, that is that piece of hardware for $4,000. We have a service contract with them based on the hardware we already own. When we bought that hardware, which was either last year or the year before, we basically replaced an existing server that had a service contract with time left on it. And when I reminded Teleview of that, what they did was they extended the length of our service contract by the amount of equivalent dollars we had left. So we need to talk about, if we buy this piece of hardware, how we're going to handle the warranty, the Teleview Care, I think they call it. And that's a question for you to ask them, Chris, is how much would Teleview Care be and how would it relate to our current service contract?
I will
Is
mention.
Teleview Care listed on this?
What they did at the very bottom is that their typical thing is they say Teleview Care is quoted 15% of the value of the sale of eligible equipment for 2-year coverage, declining straight line to 7.5% in the 5th year, and then they quote 0. So I don't know what this is. So I think I think we have to ask, what is Teleview Care going to cost us?
Great one.
And how does it dovetail into what we already have on our server?
Go to the top where that piece of equipment is,
Yes, sir. Hang on a second.
please.
I'm trying.
Yeah, no, take your time. No rush. No, too far.
I know.
Yeah.
That's it.
There it is.
Yeah, but it's the percentage based on the retail price, right?
Right.
Right, they don't, and I just thought they might have it in there, but they don't.
No, they don't. And they always do this. They always seem to put those zeros in until you actually ask them for a formal quote at the end. Okay.
Good catch.
And we have how many years left on that equipment that we already have?
I have to look that up. It was originally 5 years, but we got extended for at least a year, maybe 2. I have to go look. I have an email from them that is the official when it's going to end. I have to go look that up.
We don't really need to buy any, it seems to me. They should just give it to us.
Well, that's what I'm saying is we already have this extension to the service contract. Can we roll that into covering this instead of an extension and get everything, on the same page?
Right.
If they weren't offering us any additional discounts or different rates, I just signed this document. It said $0 for 5 years. So technically it's in the quote.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know if they really, I don't know. You may be right. In any event, you wanted to discuss the center section, which is called cloud services.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll let Chris talk to the captioning part. I know he's done a lot of research on that. So the 3 apps, we were talking about this yesterday, Chris and I, that I don't like how they broke it up, but there's the item Fire TV app, Apple TV app, and Roku app. So the note is, and then again, we don't need to do this and we don't do this today, but the video on demand service, they have like a kind of a bundled app that basically we put our logo on, or we make a logo, and they submit it to the stores, and you'll see the prices associated with this. It's interesting because a lot of people have gone over the top in town, and as far as Fire TVs, Apple TVs. The annoying thing is, I mean, again, Chris and I were talking, like I have an Apple TV in one room and a Fire TV in the other. So you can't really like pick a winner and just go with one, right? So it's kind of annoying in that way, but it is nice to have an app that you can just pull on and say, here's the OGAT channel on the app, which is really a cool feature, but it is not free.
And these are one-time costs?
Correct.
So it would be like $2,400 for the Fire app, $1,500, I'll say, for the Apple app, and $2,400 for the Roku app.
Yep.
I think no matter how nice it is, I think we just send them to the VOD.
I don't think you're wrong. And I think, if we get more demand, maybe with something we could look at later, but.
I mean, as it is now,
It's available on your TV. So if you really wanted to, you could go to the OGAT channel, and pretty much every one of those things can get to YouTube.
Yeah. Unless you don't have cable.
right.
Well, no, if you have, wait, if you have like Fire TV or Apple TV or Amazon or Roku, then you could just go to YouTube and go to the channel that way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, this is also, we're trying to make sure we consider Like if YouTube changes its rules and deletes our content again because it's
Oh, right.
too
Yeah,
long
but
and
even
boring.
then,
right?
you can cast it to one of those things and just cast it. I mean,
Well, if we went with this, first of all, in terms of YouTube going away, the only reason we would go with this is if we already bought that new server here, the Telecast 2
Oh,
streaming
100%.
service, so we wouldn't need, even if YouTube goes away, we still have the Telview VOD service, so you wouldn't need
No,
it.
we
Right.
do. I'm just saying direct to an actual over-the-top box.
Yeah.
don't need
Like I
that.
said, it's in here. Chris and I were talking it through. It's interesting. I don't think we're ready for it in any way, shape, or form. It's just very interesting that they have that option where Discover does not.
Yeah. Okay. And the last item was Connect video captioning service, which sounds really great. Except that this is, I guess, a one-time charge of $1,300, but then there's an hourly charge to actually create the captions.
No. What this is it's 100 hours of closed captioning.
Oh,
So you're buying a bulk 100 hours of closed captioning service.
okay. I thought you had told me it was like $15 an hour.
It
But
is.
that's what it
If
is.
you wanted to buy 100 hours, they give you that. They give it to you for that price.
Oh, yeah, I got it. So it's 100 hours, which means that basically we would use it, as I understand it, we could use it while we're recording, and then the captions would be on the recording.
Yes.
So we would only have to use it during recording. We wouldn't have to use any of the hours when we're broadcasting or on VOD. It's already there.
Yep. So so if you have a 2-hour meeting, it's $30 for closed captioning, and that's it.
Yeah, so that's
Every time
50
you-
meetings. That's 50 meetings a year, which means, and we're doing 190.
Have we ever been asked to close caption anything?
No,
I haven't had any requests since I've.
no. And
Yeah,
the
but I know
problem is if you start this and then stop it, you'll get complaints.
You bet you will.
I agree.
That's what. Yeah, and I agreed with Ron's email earlier that the stopping it is the most dangerous thing in the world. If people get used to it, they're gonna come with pitchforks.
Right. I think it's a cost that we can't incur at this particular point. Plus, it's expensive. It's very expensive.
Yeah,
On
and
top
even,
of the fact there's been no call for it.
Right.
I think-
Exactly,
I
Ron.
think one thing maybe to look into, and I don't know how we would do this, and I spoke with Saul briefly, and I think I spoke with Ron about this too, and probably even Mike when we were going over it the other night, but maybe there's a way we can get some money. There's other grants out there because we're government, public access. Other grants to maybe pay for the closed captioning service. That might be something to look into.
Yeah, the problem again is if the grant goes away, this goes away, and complaints start.
yep, I agree.
So I again, it's good to put this on the list for discussion.
Yeah.
Next month we'll decide whether it comes off the list.
I think it's good because if people do down the line end up requesting it, we should at least have a plan as to how we would go about that.
Or it's as easy to say, if we had 1,000 hours worth of programming, it's $10 per hour. Where does the money come from?
Can I just interfere in here for a minute? When you go to the polls to vote, we have to set up for those people who are handicapped, and we have a special telephone type machine. Do you know, in the 20 some odd years I've been working at the polls, only once back in the early 1990s did we have one blind person use the handicap thing. Nobody uses it. So I don't see why you have to go through this expense
Agreed.
when I don't think anyone is going to use it or care for it, in the sense that it has to be done, because there's no one in town who requires the handicap stuff. In that sense, where
And I mean, it's
I understand what you're saying, Chris,
yeah.
but it's the same thing for voting. If they can't understand what we're telling them when they come to the polls, they use the handicap. Not one person uses the handicap machines. It's a pain in the neck to set it up. We set it up because the law says we have to have it available, but nobody takes advantage of using it.
Yeah, and one thing I was wondering, and maybe it might be a good idea to look into, is there any sort of legislation put in place, especially now with COVID, that we need to include closed caption? I mean, that would be a lot to ask for people to provide. And I don't think there is. Ron, I think.
I have not heard anything.
No, there's nothing like that.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, no PEG station is closed caption.
Okay.
I don't know.
I think we're just opening up a can of worms, and we're just going, a little crazy here. I think we're just looking for things to do because we want to do things, and I don't think that's what we should be doing. I think we should be offering the basic service, and that's that.
Well, actually, to be honest, I mean, I wasn't just trying to. I actually heard a comment from a particular person in IT asking if that was a legal requirement. And I've been working closely IT with putting these meetings out on live broadcast, and I didn't have an answer for him. And I just was curious about it. And I figured they want to obviously sell their service, but I did think of, it's not a bad thing to talk about in case it gets brought up in the future.
All right. It's not in the executive order that allows us to do virtual meetings. We're basically following those rules, and closed captioning is not one of the rules. I think we've discussed this enough.
Yep. I think we do.
Agree?
Ron, please.
All right. So I'm going to try and find something else to show. Screen sharing has stopped. Okay. Yeah, we know that. So next on the spreadsheet, we'll try the spreadsheet again. We have a bunch of equipment and expenses. So we've got this podium, and it says replace podium in town hall. My recollection from last year after the grant was Ron wanted to use extra funds to buy a podium for High Plains Community Center, not town hall. Is that correct?
Right.
And
that's a mistake. Sorry.
What?
That was my mistake.
Oh, so this is really a podium for the High Plains Community Center because the one there kind of looks kind of old and ratty, I guess.
It looks very ratty.
Yeah. So
I'm actually surprised how cheap podiums are.
yeah, this is $256. Then there's.
Can I ask why we're paying for it again and not the.
We do
I don't know why we should be paying for it either.
I asked that question, but.
I asked the same question last year, and we do the filming there, but I don't really think it's our responsibility.
Yeah. Why would it be our responsibility?
Because the town of Orange doesn't want to upgrade a lot of things right now because they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, we've had to take responsibility for upgrading a lot of the AV equipment in town just because we couldn't really see anything that they've been presenting over the years. So we've had to do projectors in the past. I mean, don't get me wrong, this one's full aesthetics, but
we've done a lot of things for the town.
yeah.
Yeah. And don't forget that until very, very recently, there has never been an IT department. There's been nobody who could actually explain what a lot of all the stuff that is needed is there. I mean, they just didn't have the personnel to even explain what half the equipment is that's needed.
Yeah. All right. That's an item that, could be a low priority item or a zero priority item. Next is uninterrupted.
Zero priority item.
Yeah, an uninterruptible power supply, surge protector, basically. Battery, I guess we have some expired batteries. The battery's no longer operating optimally. We need a couple of extension cords. These are low value items. Chris and I discussed, sorry about that. Chris and I discussed perhaps doing some of these with the remaining funds in our budget. We have $1,600 approximately. Probably less than 1,400, maybe about 1,300 is left for that we could use for some of this equipment.
Yep.
But we have to buy it. We have to have the funds encumbered by June 15th. Otherwise, you can't buy it. So if we're going to buy any of this on our own funds in the last month of the fiscal year, which is June, we got to do it in the next week.
Do it.
But some of this stuff we can do.
I would do the whole amount. Don't let it don't let it get out of our hands.
Yeah, so this will add up a lot more than what our amount is. So we got to pick and choose the small stuff from here that we can do, or the maximize it. We have power cable management, an AC splitter, a hard case for travel, cable testing device. This, I think, this is hard disk storage and hard disk. So these are kind of backwards, Chris. The backup, the thing that's needed is the hard disk. The thing that it depends on is the dependency is you need to get the hard disk first, then you get the enclosure. So this is kind of backwards as to what the column here is dependency.
Well,
you don't need the enclosure unless you get the hard disk. So the hard disk is what you need.
100%. You can't separate them.
Right. So you need both, and you need the hard disk is what you're buying, and the enclosure you need to be able to put the hard disk somewhere. All right. So this is not cheap either. This is a fairly expensive backup drive. It's like $900 for the drive, and then the enclosure is another $700.
Yeah. So what I was gonna.
Why is there two enclosures? I think are those backwards?
No, that's two hard
I got those back. That's right. There's two drives and one enclosure. Yeah. All right.
Right. So we may want to consider an alternative to storing things on DVDs, and this was the main reason for that, because we already have a NAS for our server, and we have another storage device for content and video editing. But if we were, I was, and maybe Mike would agree to that, we should probably have a larger storage unit to take all of our content and have a digital backup of all our content.
So Chris and I were talking about this. So really it was to spur a conversation with right now with COVID, with Chris not going into town hall, he doesn't necessarily have the capability to burn the DVDs of the program. So what he has right now from the last couple of months isn't necessarily on a DVD on the desk, right, as a backup.
Yeah.
So if we're going to stay all digital, which is fine, I don't think there's a problem staying digital, we either need to start thinking about a bigger storage device so we can put these programs off of his editing drives and somewhere semi-permanent, or the other idea Chris brought up, and again, it's more of a thing we have to, I don't know if you got a chance to talk to town hall yet, is the Google Drive through the town. I know the education program has unlimited storage, and the only thing we wanted to verify is because we're more of the town side, does that unlimited storage apply to us? So again, we're not saying that we go all digital, we can keep making the discs. It's just right now, without the ability to go into town hall to burn the discs, it's harder to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So who's going to talk? So Chris, can you talk to Paul Mangelo, the IT guy, about whether we can get onto the Google Drive?
Yeah, I've spoken with him briefly before about this, and I will confirm with him. But what I've been told is since I have a town email, I can basically save everything on my Google Drive account, and it's unlimited storage there. So from what I've been told, I will confirm that's an option to store all of our VOD content.
All right. So, but you have a town email account because you're basically an employee of the town. I'm just wondering if we should just have an OGAT email account with the town.
That is not an option.
Why not?
They have to be tied to people for Google to.
It has to be tied to people. It costs money to have an account. They're really tight on money right now. I don't think they're going to want to pay for another email account like that.
Okay.
And they have ownership of my account. So if anything were to change in my
they can reassign it.
They could reassign it.
Okay, fine. All right. Moving on. Rack fan. Oh, you want to buy an equipment rack? I guess the one we have is kind of filling up anyway. So there's an equipment rack. Price of that's $200.
Oh no, the price of the equipment rack is actually
Sorry, $870.
Yep.
Then we have a. Hang on a second. Let me.
There you go. That'll help.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right. All right. Then we got I'm lost. Equipment rack.
Yep.
Then fans for the rack, $100. Now we have another TriCaster. We bought a TriCaster Mini 2 years ago on the grant, I believe, and it was like $9,000, and it came with some other stuff for that $9,000. Apparently, Chris received an offer from New Tech that they're paying up to $2,000 trade-in if you buy a new Mini 4K TriCaster for this is a price that he got online at B&H in New York. So the question to my mind is, why do we need a new one? The old one's only 2 years old.
Yep.
So when we bought the old one, I mean the old one, the one that we currently have now is still for sale. I spoke with someone. It's going to be off the market soon, and some of the hardware in it is, especially for portable use, is not something I would recommend. Like, it's a great machine. It's doing fantastic for what we want it to do. I just don't want to get stuck with it. It runs on Windows 7 right now. The new one runs on Windows 10. It's got solid state storage. It's got more capability for inputs. We don't need the 4K feature, but it's got it has a little bit more headroom for processing. And I think our old model was we were definitely using up our processing on it, and it was basically almost maxed out. And I'd like to have a little bit more headroom, have a little bit more updated technology, because I'd like to use it for a lot of years to come. And I figured we might as well consider looking into the trade-in, and we don't need a new control panel. So some of the items that are actually worth around $2,000, I think the control panel is worth $2,000, and a lot of the other accessories that came with that $9,000 purchase initially, we would be able to reuse. So we're just trading in the unit, and we're able to reuse all of our other equipment. So there may be a value in that.
Why don't we keep it and use it for backup?
And that's another thing. We could also add a new one. And this one, the one nice thing about this one is that it has an Ethernet card in it. It can issue DHCP to up to 4 cameras. So if we wanted to do a shoot remotely, we don't need to have our own network set up. We could use the network within the unit, and it saves a lot of time setting up. It saves potential. It's less components, so less potential for issues, and it's very easy. You could take a camera, and you could take the TriCaster, and you could bring as many cameras as you essentially need, and have a really portable way of doing a multi-camera shoot. So we don't like maybe an option is to see if we can get both, or have maybe we want to get this one in addition to the one we currently have. I'm not opposed to that. I think it may not be a bad idea if we have the money. There may be some other things that we could take off the list if we think that that's enough of a priority. So I'm curious to hear what you guys think.
Well, if the current one dies, how would you get along?
If the current one, well, we are covered, and we should continue to. We have a 2-year contract, and I don't know, is that up this year?
Well, if it's that we've owned it for almost 2 years.
So we should
in December, at the end of the year, it should be 2 years, I think.
So actually, we need to look into seeing if we want to extend that, and that's actually something I should include here. Regardless of whether we want to upgrade this or not, we should look at extending that service, because they will replace it for us.
Chris, is it like next business day, or is it like?
It's next business day. That's our service. That's what we're paying for right now.
That's good.
Yep.
The 7995, is that include the estimated $2,000 trade-in, or is that the list?
No, that's what B&H.
B&H.
Okay,
B&H says right on its website. I was just looking it up.
okay. So if we, I mean, like, I think your point is valid, having a backup or whatever, but if we did trade it in, that price would go down.
Yeah, it wouldn't. Yeah, and it probably might not be $2,000 either. It'll probably be less.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to assume that we're going to get the full 2,000, but it's likely to assume that we're going to get a decent amount because it's great condition and it's one of the higher quality models. It's the higher tier.
Yeah, I don't think you find out how much you get until you turn it in, actually, until they assess it.
Well, that's something that we could call B&H about, and I'm sure, and we'll be doing, I'm pretty sure we're going to be handling this trade-in through B&H, and that probably helps us because we're putting together a pretty large package for them as it is, and that may help us, and we've been known to get some help with them in terms of discounts, and we may find it that at the end of this whole quote from them that we're saving quite a bit of money, and then it makes sense to go through with it.
Yeah. All right. Any more questions on that? All right. Next item you want.
Well, actually, I asked Chris to include this just because last year I know we went through Sal has like in his brain every single age of every computer in OGAT, which I find very impressive. But I know that I wanted to make sure we had a desktop on there because I think you said that the XPS was reaching 4 or 5 years old, but
No, the XPS should not be being used because it's a Windows 7 machine that can't be upgraded to Windows 10.
Okay.
I think we have stopped using it as of January when Windows 7 went away. And if we're still using it, we better stop using it.
We are not using it.
Yeah, and I don't know that there's any real use for it. We did buy a
laptop,
a MacBook Pro that we use for editing and other things. And last time I asked Chris actually about replacing the XPS, he felt that we really didn't need to because we really didn't have a big use for it.
Well, we have 3 laptops. We have a Mac. We have a PC that's basically brand new. It's a year older than the Mac, I think. And Ron is currently using a laptop to work remotely. And those are all Windows 10. Well, obviously, aside from the Apple, updated Windows 10 machines. Those are good for a couple more years. And we have the Vostro, the Dell in our studio, and that is running on Windows 10. So we have a desktop already. So we may not need it. I just figured I'd include it. Thought it was good to throw it in there.
All right.
Sure.
Yeah, so it gets it'll probably get a low priority when we go through the list again. So that was the items for equipment and expenses. Then the next section is items to improve the content and quality of workflow. So the first item is a device called Loudness Pro, which is $845, and this stabilizes the audio signal so that we're always getting a consistently same volume going out. Is that what it is?
Yep, it normalizes the audio for all outputs of the Hypercaster, and it's very useful. It's very easy to manage, and it basically eliminates any dips or peaks in the audio as you're listening to a meeting. It's likely that different programs will finalize and export and be different levels, and it's possible that a meeting could be louder than a recorded program. So this essentially automates the whole process and just keeps everything at a consistent level.
We've needed that for a long time.
But don't we do that today with a different device?
We do, but it causes that device to constantly be running.
Yeah.
And I would rather just I'd rather leave that to the server, and it's essentially just a software plugin, so it doesn't require having an additional piece of equipment on, and it does the job. It does it even better than what our piece of hardware does. So I think there is some conveniency. I think there is a value in having that piece of equipment I think having it on all the time is not the best for it. It's not really designed, but the server is, so we should really have that processing done through the server.
Okay. Any other questions on that? No.
Was that-
Next item was Adobe Creative Cloud, why do we need this?
I'm sorry, for the photo editing?
Yeah.
So yeah, we let's see. So we have our MacBook Pro, which I would like to do photo editing on because I work on the MacBook Pro with Final Cut, and we don't have any software for editing photos on the MacBook Pro.
But we do have software for editing photos on the Vostro or one of the other computers because we bought Adobe Elements last year.
Yep. And I've been happy with it, but it's also pretty limited. And the Photoshop software is a much higher tier. It can get a lot more done that I'm looking for. It'll help us with logos and it is a yearly subscription, so we'd have to pay for it. We're getting 1 year of it, whereas this other software is a one-time purchase. But the problem is they don't really do updates to the one-time purchase. I think the value for the one-time purchase is what you're paying for is almost something that you could get from free software. And I think that for what we're using, we need something a little bit more professional. That's why I wanted to go with the Adobe. And I figured if we don't really like it, if we don't need it, we could always just not purchase it next year. So I figured for $100, it may not be a bad idea to include on the quote.
So what do you use today to create logos and edit pictures and video?
See, the thing is I mean, it's very easy for me to, like if I have one computer to work from, it's way easier than working from two. And I do everything on the Mac now in terms of content editing, and I just use the proprietary software. Sometimes I even use PowerPoint. The PowerPoint works pretty decent for what I use, but we don't even have PowerPoint. I actually like have my own I use my own subscription to PowerPoint right now. So that's why I included Office Pro under that for $249. There's other subscriptions that are a little bit less. If we don't want to pay that much, we could probably get the cheaper.
Right, so the Office Pro is a subscription also, or is it the one you buy one time?
I think that is an annual purchase.
Yeah, so you can walk into Costco and buy Office 2019 for like $120, and it's good for like until they stop supporting it, which is like, I don't know, 10 years.
Yeah, I personally like getting updates and getting the changes as they go, but that's kind of up for.
And if you don't want to pay anything, you can download LibreOffice and do it all with that.
Right. I mean, yeah.
All right. Parallels Desktop, what's that?
That's for remote login. It's another annual subscription. It's just something I throw in there because TeamViewer is giving us some trouble with. They're starting to get more strict with the free version, and they're kind of calling us out for using our service as business, and they are shutting us down for when we're trying to do remote logins. So I don't really have a solid way of logging into our computers from Town Hall, and it's kind of important sometimes, especially now with COVID. So I'm actually using my own version. I'm using Parallels to log in, which is my own purchase that I've made, not for the town. It's convenient. So
You're using personal equipment, which we don't want you to do.
Right, and Mike may have a solution on this. He works, he works in IT. I mean, if there's any suggestions to improving or getting a free method of logging into our computers remotely without being shut down
most of them have figured out that going free is a bad idea. TeamViewer is kind of the last of the Mohegans.
We can't hear you, Mike.
Why not? I'm on. Can you hear me now?
Your face was away from the mic.
Oh, yeah, my camera's over this screen, not that screen. Anyway, Yeah, TeamViewer was kind of the last of the Mohegans as far as having a free tier. All the other apps that do this, Go to My PC, all that stuff, charge a lot more money. Did we look at what the subscription? I'm trying to pull up. That's why I was on this other screen, trying to pull up with the TeamViewer. Yeah, it looks like a single user is $50 a month on TeamViewer. So $100 a year is not a bad price.
Okay, I understand. Guess we get to that section. The next section is video upgrades. So you want an LED light kit for remote shoots?
This is something I asked Chris to put on as well. So first of all, I loved the shot or the shoot with the arts and crafts at the senior center. That came out fantastic, and I thought it was really valuable during the COVID thing. But I noticed it was a little dark, and I know, I mean, don't get me wrong, the community center, senior center is a pretty well lit room as far as the above air lamps, but having a light kit, and I know we had a light kit way back when Ron and I were shooting, but it was the old halogen light kit, weighed about 100 pounds, almost completely immovable. And the people hated it because there was no brightness settings or anything. We had to basically blind them. They've come a long way. They're now all LED. They can run on battery. They pack up in a size no smaller or no bigger than a briefcase. So I asked Chris to include this, just if we're going to do, shoots like that at the senior center, it'd be nice to add a little light so we can get a little better picture.
Okay. I was going to ask, I thought we had a light kit, but you're right. It was the participants in meetings hated them. They hated the heat. All right. Now you got a camera stabilizing system. So I guess this replaces the Merlin 2 Steadicam we have that we can't get the missing part for.
The Merlin 2 was just, and I don't remember what we paid for it, but it never, from what Ron said, and maybe Mike had some experience with it.
Just strapping it to Julie, which was an entertaining process.
It was not the best configuration. It's 739 sounds like a lot, but it's going to completely change up the quality of our content and allow us to do a whole lot more, especially for events. Unfortunately, we don't have many events this year, like the Fireman's Carnival and the fair that's canceled. But
so is the Fireman's Carnival.
Yes,
we use tripods for everything, and it's a real pain in the neck sometimes. Yep. I have to agree with you. A good handheld system is in need.
Yeah, and it's about the same as, it's a little more expensive than a tripod, but it's not much. It's around the same price.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, the other nice thing, again, Sal, to your point earlier in the meeting, we kind of looked at what it would take to replace that part of the Merlin, and they're asking $600 anyway. Yeah. And why would we want to repair something that's already at least 5 years old when we can get something new for $100 more?
Yep. Okay. Next item is an HDMI video capture device of some sort.
Yes, that is just to we have a capture device for our PC.
Yeah.
Now I'm just looking for capture devices for our MacBook Pro, and I'd like to get 2 different connectors so that we can work. We could basically use this capture device with any camera that we have, because we have both SDI and HDMI cameras.
Okay. And what does this device actually do?
It takes our digital, digital camera signal, like a video output from a camera, and it will actually embedded audio as well, and it takes it and converts it digitally to our PC so that we can stream it for like a remote shoot.
Rather than waiting and getting the file and bringing it onto the PC for editing, so you can actually do it live during the thing.
Yeah, well, it's when we do like stuff for the like in the community center, like we shoot the budget hearing, we shoot we shoot the town meeting in the gymnasium, and I use a capture device for that, but I use the PC. But I figured we should be able to stream from both machines because they're very powerful machines, and we should have the ability to stream on both. And unfortunately, our device that we use for the PC is proprietary to Windows, and it does not work with Mac. So I'm looking for 2 additional devices that can work with our Mac.
Okay. All right. And the last item on the list is a boom microphone.
Yeah, this one's my fault too. So that was the other thing. I was looking at the shoot Chris did at the what is it called? The senior center. Sorry. And it sounded pretty good, but he had the like a podium microphone kind of in the middle of the shot. So I asked him how we could improve the audio, and he did say that we could use a good boom mic. That we do have a lavalier we can use for single person shoots, but when you have multiple people at a little table remote talking to each other, it's better to have a boom mic that can pick up either of them.
Right. And that would obviously require two people. I just want to point that out, that if you have that boom, well, it actually wouldn't necessarily require two people, because that boom mic can go on a stand, or you could use the boom depending on the situation you're in. So if you're in a jam and you just want to set up that mic, you could put it on a stand, or you could have another person actually directing where that mic is located. So whoever's talking, they could hold it over the person. It'll be out of the shot. And it's a way better way to pick up audio if you don't have a way of miking them individually.
Okay, so that's the list. That's everything, right? I don't think you sent me anything else, right?
No, that's it.
That includes everything on all the other quotes you sent me, right?
Yes.
Okay, so at this point, what I would suggest is, Chris, we have some questions you have to ask about, for TeleView, you have to ask about a lower bandwidth option and a lower bit rate option. Also, you have to ask about the TeleView Care and the current warranty and how they'll dovetail together. You're going to talk with Paul Mongillo about using the Google Drive for storage. If we need to, do we need to talk to him about it or not? I don't know. But need to just straighten out that we can do what we want to do. And then we have to look into a TriCaster service contract. You want to add that to the list if we end up buying the TriCaster.
Yes.
Right. So those are the action items I wrote down. Between now and the next meeting, I would appreciate if you and Mike and Ron, I'm putting this on you, Mike, also, I'm sorry.
No worries. I'm here.
If you guys could go through this again based on what you heard tonight, make some recommendations and prioritize the list. We'll have to decide what to do with the streaming subscription, who's going to get the money, if anyone. I think someone has to get it because otherwise we can't stream, apparently.
If we do not purchase a streaming service, I just want to be clear, we cannot stream 24/7.
Yeah.
But we can still stream our live meetings to YouTube when they occur.
Yeah, no, we need to be able to stream to channel 79.
We can broadcast to channel 79. That is not part of a streaming subscription.
Okay, but we can, and we can do channel 79 and channel 60, 63 on Frontier, but we need the streaming service to go to the internet.
Yeah, for 24/7 streaming to take our channel 79 and broadcast it 24/7 on the internet. That we need to pay a subscription for that.
Okay, so again, let's make some calls and if with TeleView, get those warranty issues ironed out with them, and then update the list, prioritize what you want. Now, in terms of the little stuff that you think we need right away, as I said, in our budget, we probably have, I don't know, I'd say $1,300 available, that if you want to buy this stuff on our budget, I need to know which items you want.
Let's do it.
Because I have to call someone like B&H or get an Amazon quote to get a purchase order so I can encumber the funds.
Yep.
So I need that like within
2 days.
a few days.
So what you're saying, Gary, is you want the podium first, right?
I don't know if I want the podium.
I'm razzing Gary. Don't worry about it.
Oh, I want that podium.
I don't think Gary wants the podium.
Maybe one with the president's seal on the front of it.
Yeah.
All right. So the stuff you really need, that, I don't think that's something we really need.
No. There's
We
plenty of
got-
stuff on here to
We
pull.
probably do need a UPS, and we probably do need some batteries, and we probably do need some extension cords. Get the small stuff on the list. You can go up to something like $1,300,
Right,
and we should be able to cover that on our budget.
exactly.
Sounds good.
Okay? So I think that's the end of that, unless anyone has any other
I
comments.
think we beat that to death.
Yeah, I feel pretty dead myself. So the last two items on our agenda tonight are equipment inventory. The inventory list was updated for a converter, an SDI to HDMI converter that we bought and got received last month.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you just unshare your screen so that it's back to the?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries.
I could have done that too. I was slacking on that.
Stop share. Go away.
There we go.
So we did update the equipment inventory for the one item we purchased during the month. Town Talk, as Ron said before, we have not been able to make any progress because of the COVID situation and social distancing requirements. So that's it for the agenda. Does anyone else have any comments at all? If
Motion
not,
to
I will
adjourn.
entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. Thank you all.
Take care.
Thanks. Take care.
Okay, bye now.
Good night now.
Bye-bye.